On the face of it, it was a decent point away from home against a top side, but that's kind of only half the story, isn't it? Martin, going to start with you this week. You were there on Friday, the VAR decision. Let's get straight into it, shall we? It was a tough one to take.
Yeah, it was a really tough one to take. Nearly missed it, to be honest, because it took a long time to get down there, pretty much 4 hours from Southampton to get down there. The traffic was so busy. But yeah, VAR, I'm sick of it now. I'm sure every other Southampton fan is right now as well. And how they can disallow that goal, I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. And my phone was going crazy during it, and everybody was sending me screenshots. And how many times has this happened? If that had been Liverpool or Man City, it would have never got chalked off, in my opinion. I just think it because it's Southampton, I just feel a lot of decisions are going our way. It just seems a little bit coincidental now. But I was so disappointed because I thought we played really well second half. I didn't think the first half was great, but second half we played well, and we really did deserve to walk out there with a win in the end in that second half. But VAR, where'd you start with it?
It took such a long time as well. I think that's what got my back up, is that I don't know what it was like in that away end. I assume you just like waiting to go crazy again, but it just felt like they took so long.
Yeah, it's 5 minutes. It felt like an eternity, really. And I just knew the inevitable was that we weren't going to walk out with that goal. I just felt it. And longer it went on, there was so much tension within the fan base at that moment in time. And I think everybody around me felt exactly the same. And that the fans were brilliant. You've got to give a massive shout out to our away support this season, because they've just been unbelievable, our fans. And there were wild scenes when that goal went in. The away end erupted. Brilliant from Cameron Archer, because he makes a brilliant run. And I didn't think Armstrong did a great deal wrong, really. How he's causing the goalkeeper, he's not got in the view of the goalkeeper at all, in my opinion. So no. I find it a ridiculous decision. I really do.
If we were just dealing with this one in isolation, Glenn, then you would go, okay, these things happen, but this is 3 games in a row now that we've had dubious VAR decisions go against us. I mean, what is going on?
Well, it is 3 games in a row. We obviously had the Ryan Manning's disallowed goal at Wolves, and the goal that was allowed to stand for Wolves, and both those decisions, PGMOL said were right. Afterwards, after they'd had a chance to review it and come up with a story, they said those decisions were right. We had the penalty not given against Liverpool, which could easily have been given, but wasn't. And we've had this one against Brighton. The Brighton one, I actually wouldn't have a problem with that one being chalked off if the Arsenal goal against us earlier in the season had been chalked off, because they're basically the same in that the cross comes over, the offside player in the middle misses the ball, and the onside player at the back post puts it in the goal. But Arsenal get their goal against us, and we get our goal chalked off. The only difference really is that the Arsenal player who was offside, the ball kind of went over him, and with Armstrong it went behind him. The official reason they've given for the goal being chalked off, because it impacted Verbruggen, as Martin has said, is just bull. That's just rubbish, because it doesn't. I mean, what did he think Armstrong was going to do? Flick it with his heel into the top corner whilst he was running at full pelt with the defense? I mean, I'm sure the goalkeeper was thinking, yeah, that's what he's going to do. I better cover that. Yeah. I mean, it's just rubbish. But like I said, if they disallowed the Arsenal goal, I wouldn't have too much of a problem with it. But yeah, it does seem to be stacking up against us, and there's that old cliche about it evens out over the season. Well, we're in for a hell of a season at the second half of the season. We'll end up qualifying for Europe, if we get given all these decisions. But I suspect that we're just part of a big social experiment to prove that cliche is in fact complete rubbish, and it doesn't even itself out at all. I mean, VAR for me, I tried to be a supporter for it for as long as possible, and ironically, it was at Brighton 2 years ago that my thoughts about anything positive about VAR actually died when Theo Walcott's goal got disallowed. And again, a similar thing. It was like 5 minutes, and then they found. I mean, he was level basically, but they disallowed it anyway, and all the joy that had erupted in the stadium in our end just totally went. And the same thing happened this time. they spent 3 minutes looking at the on-field decision, which was offside against Archer. And then when they found that he was actually onside, then it's we'll just look for something else. Let's look for something else. And it just seems that they're going out of their way in this scenario to find something to disallow the goal for. And it's rubbish. I mean, VAR solves some problems, but it causes a hell of a lot of others. It's still very subjective. I mean, in this, interfering with play is a very subjective call. I mean, unless it's one of those ones where the offside player is standing directly in front of the goalkeeper and he can't see round him, it's a very, very subjective call. But yeah, it's I mean, we have to shrug our shoulders and get on with it, but it just seems to be ridiculous. Oh, the other thing was the on-field decision. The explanation to Russell Martin was that the on-field decision carries weight.
Yeah,
and it didn't carry weight against Wolves 2 weeks ago, did it? Where on a collision that could have been given either way, they decided, oh no, we definitely need to disallow that one. So they're basically, if you look at that and you look at the Arsenal goal that was allowed against us, they're basically winging it, making it up as they go along. And when you get 3 weeks in a row like this is when people start saying, well, it's clearly stacked against the team down the bottom, and you can't blame people for thinking that, I'm afraid.
It's becoming harder, Alfie, to argue against that, isn't it? Because to start off with, people say, oh, well, they've got it in for us and they've got it in for the clubs at the bottom of the league. And they haven't really. And then just you see decisions like this on Friday night. Here we are on Sunday evening. It still doesn't make sense. And we still can't find anybody that will agree with them.
Yeah, I think it's always better
to...
It's always better to assume incompetence rather than malicious intent. And I think more often than not, it is incompetence rather than malicious intent. But Saints can feel very hard done by because Glen's spot on. First of all, they spend 4 minutes checking the wrong thing, and then they brush off the big decision in seconds, and they just allow a goal on it. We actually watched that on the little screen that we had. I'm sure that everybody watched on Sky had the same benefit that we did for once, rather than it being a 3 p.m. game. But we could see that they went, okay, that line is onside. That was about 4.5 minutes in. We thought, brilliant, the goal was going to stand. And then 30 seconds later, it's gone for something else. So that's utter rubbish. And like you say, it is stacking up. It's going to be really difficult to even out over the course of the season. And you just have to feel sorry for them because it's it could be very expensive. And there are a million reasons why Saints haven't been good enough so far this season themselves. And I'm sure we'll get into them again about the first half on Friday, but it's getting out of hand, and there's no point picking up the phone to Howard Webb anymore because clearly nothing's going to change. So yeah, they can feel aggrieved.
I do see somebody say we're going to end up with more apologies than points, but we've not even had apologies, have we? That's the thing. They're kind of sticking by what they're saying. So it's not even like we've got that in our favour.
I mean, they have probably had now 5 acknowledgements, and they have got 5 points. So they're not far off.
Neck and neck at the moment. Martin, let's get into the actual football then. Let's not let it mask what was a pretty poor first half again. I mean, we were lucky to be just the 1 goal down, no shots on target in that 45 minutes, and lucky to have, I thought, 10 men still on the pitch going into the break.
Yeah, we were really disjointed, I thought, for the first 45 minutes. Obviously, he struggles to settle down on side. And that, I don't think, helps because Yuki Sugawara hasn't started for weeks. He comes into the side. Ryan Manning was playing really well. He come out of the side, then he come back in. And we just looked a little bit disjointed. Flynn Downs went back into midfield. I was pleased about that. And he did change the system because he went with 2 up top. And I liked it. It brought Adam Armstrong a lot closer to Cameron Archer than Flynn Downs played back in that midfield role. And he's so much better in there. But he is struggling a little bit for confidence Downs at the moment. I don't know if last week maybe knocked him a bit. But yeah, he could have easily walked during the game. We were. I don't think we were that aggressive in the first half, if I'm honest. And we just lacked a bit of shape. And obviously we didn't have a shot on target. And I think the fans are really disgruntled at halftime. I was annoyed. We struggled to get up the field. We were slow. And we really did. We just didn't get anywhere near their box. They were good, I thought, first half. And I thought they were going to batter us at one stage. Welbeck just kept picking up space. And Matoma is just such a good player. He cuts inside and he's really hard to mark. And Yuki Sugawara had a tough time against him. And I wasn't surprised by it because every time I've seen Matoma, I think he's magnificent. But yeah, we were lucky to walk in half time. As it was, we could have been 3-0 down, I thought, at halftime quite easily.
The Brighton goal was an interesting one, Glenn, because that's one we can't really blame on the manager or VAR. That was just poor defending, wasn't it, when that ball comes in and bounces on the penalty spot?
It was, yeah, it's poor defending. I mean, Sugawara seems to have picked up most of the blame because it's obviously his man who scored. But I'm Jack Stevens is wandering lonely as a cloud in the centre of the penalty area. He's not marking anyone. He's not attacking the ball. Harwood-Bellis' positioning has to be looked at as well. He at least has picked up a player, but yeah, it's terrible. And allowing any sort of ball to bounce in the just in front of the 6-yard line is just terrible defending. Really, it came from a quick free kick, didn't it? So I do wonder if we were set properly, not switched on. We've seen that before this season. The goal at Bournemouth was very similar, quick free kick taken, and we didn't really make a decent fist of that, and ended up conceding a goal there as well. So yeah, it wasn't brilliant. It was a shame for Joe Lumley because I mean, I was terrified when I saw his name on the team sheet, to be honest, because just obviously, and he started the game reasonably well. I had a bit of luck with Rutter hitting the post and putting that header just over. Swore that was in, but yeah, he didn't have a chance with that. And again, it's another preventable goal, and the opposition didn't have to work particularly hard to score it, and that's kind of been the underlying theme of our defending for most of the season. But I mean, Sugawara, he is a problem defensively. There's no getting away from that. I mean, he did that dopey thing again, didn't he, where he didn't seem to know there was a player around him when Matoma nearly scored in the first half. Sugawara gets there first, gets the ball and just passes it to him, which is exactly what he did at Arsenal in that other VAR classic game. So yeah, he's an issue defensively. He just needs to sharpen up, or we need to play him further up the pitch.
But he started the season well, didn't he? I remember he was. Did he get a player of the week, or was it just going forward? He started well.
Yeah, his reputation when we signed him was that he's good going forward, but he's always played as a wing back, I think. And we're kind of playing him right back in a back five, really. I mean, the setup was interesting because the right hand side was different to the left. The left hand side, it was almost like Manning was the left midfielder when we were defending, but when we were attacking, there was a hybrid thing going on the left hand side and something different on the right hand side. So yeah, Sugawara worries me a little bit, but he's fit and he's not suspended, so he'll be playing against Chelsea. Yeah, there you go.
First name on the team sheet, I expect. Were you surprised, Alfie, there weren't any changes at half time? I was thought that Flynn Downs might have got hooked at half time just to try and save the red card. Obviously, gratefully didn't. But there must have been quite a team talk because we managed to get into it, and the second half was a completely different story.
Yeah, I totally agree with Martin and Glenn about the first half, because I thought they were really, really poor. Glenn's mentioned the chances. Matoma, Rutter hitting the post more than he did in 3 games for Leeds last season. And they could have been 2, 3, 4 ahead. I probably did expect some changes, but in the end, obviously, the right decision not to bring Flynn Downs off. I guess maybe the only thing counting in Flynn Downs' favour at that point was the fact that he was already suspended for Wednesday anyway. So if he did get sent off, it wasn't like it would be an extra ban. But I think the intensity levels and just they had less of the ball in the second half, Southampton, but they seemed to go forward with it a lot quicker. They were more direct. Yeah. They didn't fanny about at the back, and I'm sure that has come from the top and from Russell Martin. But yeah, I really enjoyed their second half performance. They obviously, we spoke about the disallowed goal. They probably should have won it, but also Brighton didn't do much in the second period at all. No. And I'm just going to go back and look at the substitutions, because I don't remember sort of thinking any of them went wrong. I think, he obviously brought Flynn Downs off at the perfect time, got the goal, kept him on the pitch. They were absolutely furious about that. Yuki, like Glenn says, came off. And it was Ryan Fraser for me who made a really good impact again. Yeah. And to be fair, Joe Rebo looks good as well. So there's definitely players there from the second half. But yeah, I mean, what we're going to have to sort of mesh together on Wednesday does worry me a little bit. But yeah, I guess we'll see. And also Alex McCarthy not playing. I mentioned last week on the pod about his sort of knee injections. The club sort of told me, it wasn't really getting through the game. He was fine. Well, clearly a week later, it was worse than they let on. But yeah, hopefully it'd be interesting to see what they do on Wednesday. Because if he's back fit, does he come straight back in over Joe Lumley, who
No.
didn't do anything wrong? That's the
It's
question.
not as if McCarthy had a great game against Liverpool, is it?
Well, I did when I first saw the team sheet. I thought maybe that was it. Maybe it was tactically, and he hadn't done so well. But he seemed to do all right though, Martin. And it was his. A lot of I noticed a lot of fans from like some of his previous clubs saying he deserved the chance and that he was a good guy and he's played well for them. So it was nice to see someone make a Premier League debut, and I thought he did all right.
I thought he'd done really well. And Russell's gone on record a few times talking about him in and around the dressing room and in and around the squad, what a good clubman he is, what a good human being he is. And he was important last season, I think, behind the scenes, without any doubt. And he's probably been waiting for an opportunity. He probably didn't expect one to come in the Premier League, and he got it. And I thought he did really well. His distribution's not bad. He's better with the ball at his feet. He's more comfortable around the edge of his 18-yard box, I think he is. And some of the passes that he played were really good. I wouldn't drop him on Wednesday. I'll leave him in, even if Alex is fit. I think he's got a bad knee, Alex. So what's the chances of him being fit? Pretty unlikely. But I think Joe will be fine. Obviously, we need Ramsdale back quickly because he's so important to us. But yeah, I was really impressed with him, Martin.
There's a couple of bits, Glenn, we were talking about last week, like that glimmer of hope after the Liverpool game. I was just going to get your opinion on Friday as well. Have you kind of seen enough there? Do you think there's enough about them that we have got a chance? Because we've been pretty critical up until these last couple of games. But VAR aside, there seems to be a bit of a performance there.
You look at the league table, and there are 3 teams above us who are 4 points ahead of us, which at the end of the day doesn't look like that much. Of course, we've got to sort ourselves out, otherwise it's completely irrelevant. And obviously, as we've kind of alluded to already, Chelsea in midweek is going to be ridiculously difficult to get anything out of that. So, but in general, I've said this from the start of the season. I see us doing well in bits of games, and sometimes we defend okay, sometimes we attack okay. We never seem to do it all in the same game. The one game we did win against Everton, we were probably a little bit fortunate too. We had a few bits of fortune in that game, and did enough to beat what at the end of the day is a very poor Everton side. So, but yeah, I mean, I think they've got to take heart. I mean, Brighton up to 2nd or 3rd in the league. I didn't actually think they were that good. And they won't finish anywhere near that. But we're playing an informed team, and we've gone there with a few players missing, and we've come away with a point, and we probably, we've come away feeling that we should have won. So yeah, there's got to be some optimism there, but we can't obviously afford to take too many more steps backwards. Because we've done this before, where there's been a glimmer of hope from the performance, and then we've sucked in the next game, and we've had, I mean, Bournemouth came on the back of a couple of decent, sort of like half decent performance against Ipswich, and the half hour against Man United, and then against Bournemouth we were dreadful. Wolves was another one that was after the Everton game, wasn't it? And we said that would be a mark of how far we've come. We went to Wolves and we were dreadful, basically, even allowing for VAR. So yeah, I mean, but you're kind of mad if you're optimistic about our chances of staying up. I mean, because I look at it now and I think we've got to get to sort of at least sort of 14, 15 points by the halfway stage, which is December 28th, I think, when we play Crystal Palace, I think. Or was it West Ham? Can't remember. But,
yeah,
that's exactly halfway, and you've played everybody once. And I kind of feel we need to be on at least 14 or 15 points by then. And so we've got, I don't know, 6 games to try and get another 10 points from 6 games. Are we going to do that? Or are we, if we're still on sort of single digit points by Christmas, then it's not happening, and it's incredibly unlikely that we will get out of it. And unfortunately, that's the territory we're in now. It's performances or bits of performances. It's all about getting points on the board. But they've got to take Friday's point as a positive and move on. But I mean, you'd have to be insane to predict we're going to get anything out of Chelsea.
Well, Glenn, I mean, you've experienced it all, obviously, as a Saints fan. All three of you have.
Yeah.
Southampton are famous for great escapes. Of course, they are in the 90s, the squad you had. Given that no club has ever survived from this position, let's dream for half a second and say that if they did go on and survive, would this be their greatest escape?
Probably because probably because
definitely
the way football has changed since the 90s. Everyone was a lot closer. You know, the bottom of the league and the top of the league was a lot closer, given, you know, the money that they had. It was before the sort of Sky money, which obviously started in 1992. It was before it really kicked in and made a huge difference with the teams at the top against the teams at the bottom. It was years before FFP, so you could spend more money if you wanted to, and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, if we manage to stay up this season, it will be. It will be unbelievable, to be quite honest. And I mean, it's getting to the stage now where if any promoted club stays up, it's seen as a bit of a miracle. But from the position we're in now, I mean, you'd have to be mad to predict it. But whilst there's still sort of like three teams within touching distance, then that's what you got to aim for, isn't it?
Be interested to get your thoughts on this, Martin, because obviously we've been speaking about it quite regularly, and we've been having the same discussions every week, coming back to the same old things. Is your opinion that the damage has already been done, and 5 points, is it from 13 games, is not enough?
Yeah, way too much damage done. I expected so much more, and I've said it so many shows I've been on, so many people I spoke to. I knew it was going to be tough. I knew it was going to be really tough. He wasn't helped with the recruitment. We always go back to it. And the recruitment in the summer, just in the final third, they made some really good signings. But I just think in the final third, he was let down left side. He needed another striker, and there was no doubt about that, because it was all where were the goals going to come from? And we were always going to leak those, because we let so many in the Championship. We let 64 goals in. We were always going to let goals in, especially the way that he plays football. And I always thought that he would adapt a little bit more than he has done. He's been very stubborn, Russell, and all the fans would say it. He has been stubborn. There's no doubt about it. And whether that he's got good enough players to play the way he wants to play, I don't think he does personally, and I think it will get us relegated. I'm gutted that where we are right now, and the damage for me has been done. Whether they can bring some reinforcements in January, they might. Sport Republic and transfer windows don't go together that well, do they? Let's be honest. I think the damage has been done, Martin. I really do.
And do you think that lies with the recruitment, or do you think it is that stubbornness? If we're playing this way of football, but we don't have the players to do it, that is, no matter what they say about it's a journey and it's a long-term plan, that's just madness, isn't it?
Yeah. What is the long-term plan? I would love to know it. There was a bit of talk that Sport Republic are going to put like some sort of statement out in the next few days. I heard it yesterday, whether that's true or not.
True.
To talk about it. Yep. It's not true. But it would be interesting to know what their 10-year plan is. It really would, because for me to yo-yo up and down is so dangerous. That obviously they haven't recruited well enough, like they say, but I think that Sport Republic have to take some responsibility for the recruitment, and then the manager as well. You know, like he's got a way of playing, and a lot of people think he's naive. Every mainstream pundit says the same. And I must have had 15 texts on my phone, all saying the same thing on Friday night. Why do you persist to play the same way when it doesn't work? And it doesn't always work. How many chances do we give teams? I think we've gifted individual errors more than anybody that have resulted in shots at our goal. It's not good enough. It needs to be better. And I still think we need to find other ways to play football. The shining star, we haven't spoke about him, is Tyler Dibbling, because he was just on another level to anything the other night. He was just magnificent. And as the game went, he got better. He was beating people for fun. We will struggle to keep hold of him. Enjoy him while you can. I'd love to know your opinion of it, but he could be the best thing to come out of our academy since Gareth Bale. I think he is that good.
Well, this is what we were saying, like the difference between going down this time and going down last time is that we've got a few more sellable assets, and you would, like you say, Sport Republic and spending money wisely don't necessarily go hand in hand, but you would think that we might have more money and not make the same kind of mistakes again. Just want to kind of wrap up on Brighton. We'll do player of the week in just a moment. Anything else, Alfie? There was a little bit of needle between the managers afterwards, which as a fan, I quite like that. I like seeing that.
Yeah, there was, and I think Fabian Herzler did his press conference first, and he was asked very directly about it. What was that argument about? Because I think they sort of came to handbags really on the pitch at full time, didn't they? But
Yeah.
I think all throughout the game, Russell Mine was frustrated that he was waving the imaginary card at every tackle, and obviously, ended up getting all the players booked.
Which is one of the biggest dick moves in football, to be honest. To be waving imaginary cards, players doing it is bad enough, and to me, it just should be an automatic yellow card if you do that. And for managers to be doing it as well is just pathetic. But carry on.
And and both managers were booked. Russell Martin obviously felt exactly the same as Glen and responded. And I think Russ has been booked now. That must be his 4th or 5th this season. He's already done a touchline ban, so he's no stranger to the referee's book. But then Fabian came in, press conference, asked about it. He was like, "For me, the game is about respect. That's the way I was brought up. You have to ask him about it." So the same person did ask Russell about it, and he said, "Respect." Talking about respect. He's talking about respect, waving the yellow card around, and all this sort of stuff. So a little bit of handbags, a bit of bite, but it's just a bit of fun, really, isn't it? I think Russell Martin's final comment was, "But we're both just trying to win the game, so it doesn't really matter." I think that's fair enough.
I thought he was very reasonable afterwards. Let's do Player of the Week. No surprise, Tyler Dibbling won last week. I have a feeling that he might end up winning again this week. Glenn, from what you've seen, who was the standout for you?
I'll leave Tyler Dibbling out of it because it almost goes without saying that he's going to win. I mean, he won the award on Sky, didn't he? And I've no reason to think that our fan base will think any different. But I'm going to go for Joe Lumley, actually, because he's just, I mean, I've always called him Mr. Vibes. I just feel like he's a good guy. I don't think he's a particularly good goalkeeper. His career suggests that he's not a particularly good goalkeeper. He's just that, he's a good lad. He's probably gets his round in, good on the golf course, all that sort of stuff.
That's what
nice
we want.
Lad. Yeah, 29 years old. He's never been near the Premier League, and he gets his chance, and he has a really good game. So I like stories like that. It's like it's a bit like Ryan Manning being a Premier League footballer. It just shouldn't happen, but it has. And they, and both those two have done okay. So I'll go for Joe Lumley, and I totally agree that he should stay in the team for Wednesday, where he will need some higher power to help us in that particular game. But
Does anybody
Joe Lumley.
Does anybody know the Gordon Ramsay meme where it's like he's talking to an adult and he says, "You effing donkey," and then he talks to the kid. It's like, "Don't worry, don't worry, you precious, don't worry." I do feel there's a bit of that going on with Joe Lumley, because he did pass it straight to the Brighton attacker at one point in the first half an hour of the game. And if McCarthy had done that, they'd have had effigies of him on the Itching Bridge. So I do think there's an element of that on it. But I mean, I'm going to nominate Ryan Manning for me, who Glenn sort of alluded to, because I said weeks ago, not the only person, but I said weeks ago that he's actually been doing well this season, and I was surprised he came out of the team when he did. Comes back in, he was really good, set the goal up pretty much, and good game.
Some good crosses into the box. It wasn't his fault that there wasn't anybody there to receive them. Martin, so we've got Joe Lumley, Ryan Manning, Tyler Dibbling. Anybody else to add to the list?
Well, I was going to go with Ryan Manning, actually, same as Alfie. I think he's been brilliant since coming in the side. I think he stepped up. I didn't expect him to play like he's been playing. I've had to pick somebody that's not been named. So I'm going to go with Ryan Fraser. I thought the energy that he gave us when he came on was really good. I know he's not massively liked in all of the fan base, but I thought his energy and in his work ethic is really, really good. He'd be an important player on Wednesday night. And Ryan Fraser it is for me.
Okay, nice one. We'll get that poll on social media. And if you're watching live, of course, just add your own suggestions into the comments.